Evening, everyone. Welcome in. It is Iowa Hawkeyes Primetime Live. We are your hosts. I'm Josh Elmer. He is Chris Meglio. Good evening, everyone. And again, welcome to Iowa Hawkeyes Primetime Live, where it's time to talk a lot of Iowa football, Iowa athletics, as we do every Monday evening at 6 o'clock right here on the Voice of College Football, Iowa at the Voice of College Football. Chris, my man, how we doing this evening?
Doing good, man. It's a beautiful day in Iowa City. It's like 70 degrees, not a cloud in the sky. It's just one of them days, man. It's one of them days. Just go outside, take a walk or something. But, we're feeling good, man. It's a good weekend. Obviously, we had a big event I'm sure we'll dive into this weekend. All of Iowa City was celebrating. It was like a local holiday here. But, it's going good. And it's semester coming up, too. So I'm excited to, wrap it up and head towards the summer.
Well, let's jump right in on that. Since you mentioned it, you said it was like a holiday in Iowa City. The fanfare for Caitlin Clark's return. What was it like in Iowa City?
Where do I even start? Oh man. The whole town. I was driving through, excuse me, driving through the town early in the morning, and everywhere you go, there's 22s all around the town. Some in red with the Fever, some in yellow with the Hawks. Then it gets time to go to the stadium. Families are tailgating in the parking lot at 11 o'clock. The game didn't start till 3. There was already a line by 12:30. Then as soon as the doors opened, fans came swarming in. Seats were packed by like 45 minutes left for game time. And every time Clark ran on the court, every time she touched the ball, every time her face was showing on the jumbotron, it just cheers, man. It was that's one of those games that I'll never forget for sure. I mean, being in the flesh of that was amazing. And I didn't cover a Caitlin Clark game in Carver until this one, which is kind of funny because now she's gone from Iowa. But to do it and be able to tell my friends and my future kids and my future wife about that's going to be something worth bragging about. Because man, she's a show. Caitlin Clark show is it's real.
A showstopper, a superstar. You are watching in real time. All of us are living and watching a Tiger Woods, a Michael Jordan, a Serena Williams. In fact, we just wrote a story the other day at Hawkeyes Wire, which, oh, by the way, introductions on a Monday night. I'm Josh Helmer with Hawkeyes Wire. You can check out my work, Riley and Scout's work over there, hawkeyeswire.usatoday.com. And Chris, tell everybody off the top where I know you got a multitude of hats, but where folks can find you.
Yeah, Daily Iowan, student newspaper here at the University of Iowa. I work for Daily Iowan, and if you catch me in about a month and a half, you can see some of my work in the Des Moines Register. So, just look out for my name out there.
And of course, both of us right here at the Voice of College Football, Iowa, at the Voice of College Football, Iowa Hawkeyes Primetime Live. So we published a story just the other day about Caitlin Clark and the interest, the demand that she has created in the trading cards sphere. Over 100,000, I think approaching 110,000 cards from PSA, which is sort of regarded. I'm sure there's others out there, and my apologies to the competitors to PSA, but PSA is sort of regarded as, if not the ultimate, then right there at the top of the industry in rating collectibles and in rating trading cards, and not just sports trading cards, but your Pokemon trading cards, you name it, right? Your Magic the Gathering cards. I'm sure there's other trading cards out there, but anyways, Caitlin Clark, her gravity, the demand that she creates, record numbers in trading cards graded for Caitlin Clark, rookie cards, et cetera, et cetera. So fun to see Caitlin Clark come back to Carver. Absolutely electric. You worried a little bit, is she going to be healthy enough to play in this thing, because she sat out the preseason game right before. But sure enough, Chris, well, there was a legendary logo 3, as there should have been.
Man, I'll tell you, well, first off, I had no doubt in my mind that she was going to play. Even if she was hurt, I believe whether it was her choice or not, she sat out the day before to be fully rested for this. But there is no way that she comes back to Carver and does not play. Kayla, no, she's not doing that to those fans. But, yeah, I mean, for that game, she started off. She hit the contested 3, like first possession. what a way to start it. But then what an encore she put on. At 30 seconds left in the third quarter, she pulls up a step behind her famous 22 mark on the court where she broke the women's scoring record against Michigan. And I'll tell you, in person, that looks so cool. I was there in person for the Michigan shot, actually. But in the person, that looks so cool. Seeing everyone rise up. And that was kind of her breaking moment of being emotional because she was so locked in. She wasn't really acknowledging the crowd too much until she hit that shot and went to the bench. Then she was all for the crowd, hyping them up, being the showboat that she is. But on YouTube, it just looks even crazier because on YouTube, it really, I don't know why, but just when it's on TV, it looked farther on the YouTube screen, like from a camera perspective rather than in person. I don't know why, but it was still, to see one of them shots. That's going to be one of those shots that people all around the world are going to start watching over and over and over again. And Ryan Ruocco had a good call too. So,
how many
fan of him.
How many times in sports does somebody get to go back home at a place that they made famous that has your logo on the court, and oh, by the way, you shoot from beyond said logo? It's like a first time in sports. I thought it was so awesome too, the moment between Caitlin Clark and the Brazil national team coaching staff. Just all of it was great. She gave the people, Chris, what the people wanted.
Yeah, she, it was funny too because she was signing autographs. By the way, she's such a good person. She signed every single autograph of any jersey, any picture she could see. I think it was like 20 minutes worth of just straight autographs. So she's a great human for that. She has a great presence of, or a great awareness of what her presence is and what the situation was. Who knows when she's going to be back, if she's ever back. So made the most of that in terms of giving the fans what they want. But, there were some of the players came up and, want to take pictures with her. There was one girl who even came up with her own Sharpie and had Caitlin sign her jersey that she was wearing. So that really puts in the, perspective on her global impact on the game and how famous she is. Because, man, she's one of a kind. Like you said, Tiger Woods, Serena Williams, even though she hasn't done anything on the W yet in terms of championships and MVPs, that day is coming. She's one of those very few you say that day is coming. So she's on her way in that exclusive club for sure.
I can't wait to see what this season has in store for Caitlin Clark and for the Indiana Fever. Her encore act after, of course, earning Rookie of the Year honors, and that second half of the season really, after she kind of weathered the storm of getting beat up, I think, a little bit in the WNBA, there was maybe a less than cordial welcome, shall we say, from others in the WNBA. And once she kind of weathered that, boy, it started to look like Caitlin Clark last season. And I can't wait to see what's next now that she's a year older, wiser, looks like she's stronger. She's added some weight to her frame. And, oh, by the way, the team got better. They went and added Sophie Cunningham. They went and got DeWanna Bonner, and they got Natasha Howard. And obviously you brought back Aaliyah Boston and Kelsey Mitchell. So it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun to follow. It satiates some of that sports window on the calendar too, right? From May, June, July. Unless, look, I love Major League Baseball, but if you're like a lot of us and you're counting down to Iowa football, then thank you, Caitlin Clark, because you've made the summer months more enjoyable for many out there.
Yeah, for sure. Looking at that Fever team, well, first of all, Caitlin Clark had a historic rookie year. She made first team All W as a rookie, and she was, I believe, fourth in MVP voting. So that's saying a lot about the season she had. She's only a rookie. She led the league in assists. I think she actually had she definitely broke the 3-point record in WNBA in a season. I think she actually broke the assist record too.
She did.
Yeah, she did. Okay, I'm about to say, don't quote me on that, but she did. And you could expect that year 2 leap to happen. Then you bring, like I said, DeWanna Bonner is a proven winner. Sophie Cunningham's a great player, and you keep Kelsey Mitchell, Aaliyah Boston, Natasha Howard. You got some others on the bench. And then, and this, I was there for the pregame and postgame interviews with head coach Stephanie White, and she was saying, she got asked what was the most glaring thing that you noticed about Caitlin. First thing right off the bat, didn't even hesitate, her strength, like her ability to take physical contact, even just the way she looks. There's been some viral pictures of her kind of at these games flexing and her muscles are showing. So, she's putting in work, and like you said, God bless her for giving us something to look forward to in the offseason because, like you said, we love baseball, but there's a lot of fans that watch this show that are diehard Hawkeyes. We need something to watch, and she's always going to be a Hawkeye. So, a lot of fans are tuning into the Fever. Man, it's a showstopper. Absolute showstopper.
Just one more thing on women's basketball before we jump into Iowa football and start talking some of what Kirk Ferentz had to say to close the spring, if you will. The springboard effect from what Caitlin Clark, what she provides for the University of Iowa. You really want to see the program continue to, for lack of a better phrase on it, cash in on the momentum, the superstardom that is Caitlin Clark. And if you're wondering, hey, is there anything more in the way of news for Iowa women's basketball? Emily Rodriguez, it was reported about a week ago that Iowa was one of the big-time contenders for the UCF transfer guard, wing, really small forward. I think could be a big-time scorer. If Iowa gets her to go along with Chit Chat Wright, who you brought in, it's probably going to slot right in to be a starting point guard for Iowa alongside Addie Deal and what you got coming back in Taylor McCabe and Kylie Fierabach, and of course the bigs Stolke and Hayden. So if you're wondering, hey, can you springboard some of this Caitlin Clark momentum? We do have news that Emily Rodriguez, Chad Leistico with the Des Moines Register reported that she's set for a May 12th visit. So that is right around the corner, the UCF transfer that sounds like Iowa has some momentum for, and that would be a big-time get. Would love to see Jan Jensen continue to keep rounding out that roster.
Yeah, that Caitlin Clark effect is still real. I was saying it when she was here her senior year. Like, the effect she's having on the program and the university, that's going to carry on for years to come. And you've seen it last year with the crowd coming back. You still got, like, Lucy Olson came here. She says one of the reasons why she came here is because, what Caitlin Clark has done and the program has done. Now you got a lot of players looking at us at this program, very well respected, and essentially put us on the map in a sense. Now you got players looking in, and we still got to grab a couple because we're losing Settle Falter, we're losing Lucy Olson, Addie O'Grady, I believe, is gone too. So you got a couple spots to fill in, but you still get maintaining most of the roster. So you could expect us to at least be as competitive as we were. Can I say last year?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, you know what I mean by that. But yeah, we'll be competitive for sure. And Eddie Deal's going to be a showstopper. Believe that. McDonald's All-American. The last McDonald's All-American we had come to this school was Caitlin Clark. I'm not going to say she's going to be Caitlin Clark, but McDonald's All-Americans, they're one of the best in their class for a reason, and she could be an instant showstopper right away.
Well, hopefully, again, I just thought the Carver crowd, not just with Caitlin Clark. I thought this past season during the USC game, the fever, no pun intended, for women's basketball at Carver is awesome. And look, if I'm Kate Harpring, 5-star kid that's being courted by a number of big-time programs out there, if I'm a number of these other targets that Iowa is after, I got to say, come on, Carver is – it's enticing to get to go play in front of those fans, the way that they're supporting Iowa women's basketball right now. Addison Bjorn is another player that Iowa has been on the recruiting mix for. Jenica Lewis, an in-state product that Iowa has been connected to for a long time. So some big targets in that 2026 cycle coming right around the corner, Chris, that hopefully, again, what Caitlin Clark brought on Sunday to Carver Hawkeye Arena. Just a reminder, you can be a part of that too. That is a possibility. The excitement, the attention, the support for Iowa women's basketball, it's not matched by many, if any, right now nationally. So I just thought a great display again from Iowa fans, and I'm sure Fever fans too. But look, it was in Iowa City, it was in Carver, it was primarily Hawkeye fans.
Yeah, that's the big thing too, is these fans, like I said, they're not going anywhere. They're going to stay for a long time. If they didn't leave this year, I'm just going to refer to it as this year. If they didn't leave this year, they're not going to leave anytime soon. So if you're a 5-star, a 4-star, and you want to play in a great environment where you're really supported, there's not many programs that'll fill up a stadium consistently like the Hawkeyes do. And that's a part of the Caitlin Clark effect. Every game was sold out last year. Every single game. that's very telling of what's going to be there in the future. And obviously, if you're an athlete, if you love putting on a show, you want to put on a show in front of fans. The fans get you energized. The fans is what makes sports amazing. They make the experience what it is. And the other programs that do have it are the ones that are the UConns, the South Carolinas, and all that. The Hawkeyes are right up there with them. We're a premium program, so you should be looking at Iowa. You should look at what Jan Jens is doing, what the team's doing, and how the town really rallies around women's basketball. Because, like you said, it's really second to none.
Well, I could talk Caitlin Clark and Fever basketball all night. I love that shirt that they published the other day. The every game's a home games, just fantastic marketing. It's gonna be fun to see what the rest of the spring and into the summer has in store for Caitlin Clark and for the Indiana Fever. But with that, let's jump into some Iowa football talk. Some Kirk Ferentz thoughts. He met with the media after the Iowa Open spring practice was concluded, and he said, combined a couple of quotes here. Quote, overall, the spring was good. It was productive for us. Saw growth pretty much top to bottom with the roster. I think our leadership base was surprisingly good, which maybe we haven't, Chris, talked or thought enough about that with Iowa. The amount that this group is replacing, you kind of just assume that Mark Gronowski, when he's healthy, is going to be this tremendous leader for Iowa offensively. When you have that kind of player that has the kind of production you can see scrolling at the bottom of the screen here, naturally folks are going to follow that guy, right? But what do you make of just the leadership department for Iowa? I thought that was a good quote from Kirk Ferentz, that he feels good about what the Hawkeyes have in the way of leadership. And that's minus Mark Gronowski, at least as a active participant in every part of the word, active participant, right, throughout the spring. I know he did a little bit of work, but he feels good about the leadership even without Gronowski fully involved.
Yeah, man. And, in terms of Mark Gronowski, he was a 3-time captain at South Dakota State for a reason. You don't just, or North Dakota State, I'm sorry. Or South North. Why am I
South Dakota State.
South Dakota State.
Go Jackrabbits.
Yeah. But he was a 3-time captain for a reason. When you see that, you don't get nominated 3 times to be a captain if you're not a leader. So it's nice to have some leadership at the quarterback, but also what we lost and the guys like Jay Higgins, Nick Jackson, some of those established guys, those veterans, Wyatt Black, I'm sure. You need some guys to step up and kind of take the reins. We mentioned in our old shows like TJ Hall, we mentioned Xavier Nwampa. Those guys had to step up and be a voice in the locker room, fill the void. And I'm sure that's what Kirk Ferentz is referring to. Just some of those guys that, were maybe some of the younger guys listening last year. Now they're the ones speaking up, and the others have to listen to them. And, we don't necessarily have to go out in the transfer portal. What I'm getting out of that is we don't have to go in the portal and get leaders because we already have them. That's kind of what Iowa's predicated on. That's why Kirk Ferentz has been here so long, because he develops good men and good leaders. So, to me, it's no surprise that, we already have the ones filling in the void of what we lost in the offseason,
Kirk Ferentz made a point to, in his closing remarks, his remarks with the media as the spring phase came to a close. He mentioned a couple of things just in closing beyond the, general comments about, how spring had gone and it's been productive. He, number one, made sure to congratulate Caleb Johnson, which I think every Hawkeye fan would join him in that. The other thing that he made sure to mention was his general frustration with the lack of clarity as it pertains to the House settlement and the roster situation for Iowa and for college football in general. I don't know how deep we want to get into the weeds on that, but I did think it was interesting. And I agree with Kirk on this front. He said about the 105 roster limit, which, again, we think is going to be finalized for July 1st. But again, we don't know because the House settlement has not been ratified. It has not been put fully into motion here. But he said Kirk's worry was that it rewards the people that weren't thinking about what was in the best interest of their players. in other words, Iowa was pretty forthcoming and honest with its players in terms of, hey, this is where you stand in regards to being part of 105, and maybe some other programs didn't do that. And so, Kirk had been a proponent, Chris, of stair stepping it down, right? Taking it to where you don't just snap the fingers and all of a sudden you're at a 105 roster limit. You go from 125 to 120 to 115 to so on and so forth, right? But the House settlement didn't the way it was initially written was not written that way. It was, hey, we're going to 105, we're going to 105 tomorrow. And Iowa has operated in that fashion. Now it sounds like it is going to stair step down. So just one of those things I think that is unfortunate in some ways for Iowa, because look, I don't have to tell you, our audience here on Iowa Hawkeyes Primetime Live, about the rich history and success of Hawkeye walk-ons. Maybe a couple of players that could have helped Iowa were kind of, I don't want to say shown the door, but were told where they stood in the pecking order and made decisions to go play in other places. So that was interesting from Kirk.
Yeah, and I believe there's a lot of situations, most of these situations have their ups and downs, their positives and negatives. And it is, kind of sad for, like you said, as for those walk-ons who really want to work and earn for a spot. Now they're kind of, their chances are almost slimmer. But Kirk has always been such a strategic guy with his roster. I mean, that's part of the reason why he's been here for 26, 27 years. And he's always, as you said, he's always kind of been the one to tell guys really early on, hey, this is what it's looking like, or every step away, very, very communicative. That's kind of the reason why we've been seeing some of these freshmen or sophomore guys transferring out, because he said in the conference last year, he was very adamant about, hey, we're going to tell you where you stand. And if you choose to leave, if you want to do what's best for your career, that's okay. Some guys do want to stay. They love the place and they don't want to leave and they want to grind it out. Some guys want to find that opportunity elsewhere. But either way, Kirk is going to tell you straight up how it is. And at the end of the day, that's very respectable. That's why he's one of the most well-respected coaches in college football. So, Josh, it is a tough situation that he's getting put in, but it's nothing that he hasn't seen in his, his long, very long tenured coaching career.
And he's been adjustable over the last however many years since the transfer portal and NIL, probably the last half decade, right? Where a lot of this came to the forefront in college football. I think Iowa was maybe, I shouldn't say maybe, they were slower to adapt to the transfer portal and being all in. I don't think Iowa today is all in on the transfer portal, but they have made proper use of the transfer portal and understanding how the transfer portal will fit into Iowa's plan, how you can go pick and choose a spot here or there where, for instance, the last couple of weeks, what have we talked a lot about, Chris? That Iowa maybe wanted a cornerback, or Iowa maybe wanted a safety, or I don't know, Iowa could use an offensive tackle, could use a little offensive line help. And give Kirk Ferentz and the Hawkeye staff credit. They have been adjustable over the last couple of years, and they've made proper use out of the transfer portal. I think Nick Jackson is a great example of Iowa getting a player from elsewhere. He comes in and he turns into a guy that's like he was at Virginia, a triple figure tackle guy and a 2-year starter for the Hawkeyes and a really good player. And you're hoping that you've found a couple more of those guys in this portal cycle.
Yeah, I love how you brought up Nick Jackson. First of all, shout out to Nick Jackson for getting that rookie minicamp deal with the Giants. Happy for him for sure. But yeah, he's a prime example. And I remember last year Kirk Ferentz saying how he'd rather kind of develop guys within the program, but he knows the situation that he's in, the times we're living in, and you have to look at the portal. And when you get guys like Bryce George, he's a huge O lineman. Get Mark Gronowski, you get Bryce Hawthorne, the linebacker. You got all these guys coming in. We got Shaheed Barrows, I believe. He's utilizing the portal as he should. And it's hard these days to just recruit out of high school and not look at the portal when there's so many great players in there. And you could argue that in the NIL era, it's it's easier and harder in the sense to grab players, and money comes into the picture. Now plays a big part in it, but I believe since the NIL era started, now you could make the case that this is Kirk Ferentz's best recruiting class out the portal. I mean, I don't want to say that yet. We haven't seen them, but just looking at the initials of what they look like, looking at the numbers and what they've done already, it looks like it's his best year in terms of portal additions. We'll see how that plays out, but he's doing a great job adjusting. As an old tenure coach, he's not used to this life, I'm sure, but he's getting there. He's getting there, Josh.
Seth chimes in. Kirk is a goat of roster management. He absolutely is. He's good at it, and though probably if they we don't know the 105 player roster limit, that might be a thing by the time we do this show next week, that the House settlement could get finalized and Iowa planned accordingly, and now you don't have to worry about telling guys, hey, we don't have a spot for you come the fall. So Iowa is one step ahead in that regard, and I trust that Kirk Ferentz and Tyler Barnes and the staff, they evaluated the personnel properly to determine where everybody was in the pecking order and who fits in where and where they needed some help. And I'm with you to your point about the transfer portal. I thought it was interesting that the Big Ten Huddle, which they've got a podcast, and they're all over the place. If you're looking and consuming Big Ten content out there on X, on Twitter, if you're looking for Big Ten stuff, probably you've seen the Big Ten Huddle. They do a really good job. Whoever's handling the social media work for them, hey, bravo, round of applause. I see a lot of your tweets out there. And anyways, they had their list of Big Ten schools based on the On3 transfer portal evaluator. And they listed every Big Ten school, and it was basically, has the program had a net positive or a net negative based on what they've done via the transfer portal. And Iowa was one of a small group of schools where they thought basically that Iowa had gotten worse from the transfer portal. And Chris, I have to disagree with that vehemently. I don't know how you can look at that with Iowa and think that they got worse via the transfer portal. It might not be littered with just the splashiest of transfer portal additions this side of Mark Gronowski, because I do think Mark Gronowski is a pretty splashy transfer portal addition. Maybe not to everyone, but to educated college football fans. I think they understand what Mark Gronowski can mean for Iowa. But outside of that, okay, I'm with you. Maybe you don't look up and see, okay, that's a former 4-star, former 5-star guy, and oh, by the way, he comes over from Ohio State or Alabama. It's not the Caleb Brown additions that we've seen in the past, but guess what? The Caleb Brown addition, it didn't work for Iowa. So I think that Iowa went and identified players that at positions of need, Chris, can help them. So I don't know how you can look at the situation for Iowa outside of this is just what the On3 recruiting rankings look like, their transfer portal rankings look like. I understand the logic of how it gets to that point, the addition, subtraction, and what their system tells them. Is it a net positive or a net negative? For me, looking at this thing for Iowa, I don't know how you could look at it and say that Iowa hasn't gotten better out of what it's done from the transfer portal.
Yeah, I don't know. I got to see how they do these rankings. I got to see what's the criteria for this, because it doesn't make sense. If you're looking at the portal, one went in and one went out, what came in for Iowa is, in my opinion, significantly better than what is left. We lost, Brandon Sullivan, we lost. Not good to lose him. Cade, he had an up and down season. But outside of that, there was really nobody too, prominent that left the program. No one that played major minutes outside of the quarterbacks that left the program. Now you bring in Mark Gronowski, who, again, I said it the first episode, got invited to the combine. He's an NFL-bound quarterback. That alone is a W. Then you bring in like Bryce Hawthorne. I saw it somewhere else. I'm blanking on what the source was, but they said that Bryce Hawthorne was one of the best transfers out the FCS level. You get him. Bryce George is a proven winner at Ferris State. I mean, like, Shahir Barrows was a guy that we needed after, John Nestor left. I just don't see how you look at Iowa, what we brought in, and say, that we lost. We lost talent. Do they even look at Iowa? I'm not too sure. I would love for them to see what their criteria is. I don't believe they paid attention to Iowa that much to really say, because if they did, I don't see how you could say that Josh, I just don't understand it. I don't know how we got worse, and we didn't.
Well, I don't think they understand how, Iowa works outside of they're just looking at, player ratings as compared to the sheer numbers that Iowa lost as opposed to brought in. Williams at running back, good player. Caleb Brown looked like he could have been a good player for Iowa if he could have handled at times his business off the field, the personal life at times, not making collegiate mistakes or collegiate aged mistakes at times. And then I don't know, I can't speak to the in practice picking up or failure to pick up of the playbook, but just didn't totally click for Caleb Brown, even though he looked like somebody that could really help Iowa initially coming in. The tight ends, Grant Leaper and Gavin Hoffman, those are a couple of guys that maybe you would have looked at down the line and said, okay, they could have helped Iowa. The defensive backs, Khalil Tate, John Nestor, we saw a little bit, and there were positives. There was some not so great from John Nestor. So I don't know that there's any one player that left Iowa that you say, oh no.
Yeah. The only one that really comes to mind is Brendan Sullivan. He played good for us, and me covering the team, I felt that excitement of what he was able to do on the field, even though he had his lapses every now and then. What he brought to the team was very unique, something that we haven't seen in a little while. And you felt good about, at least the end of the season, you're looking at the situation and saying, okay, well, we feel confident with him being our starting quarterback. But when a guy like Mark Gronowski comes in, Brendan Sullivan knows he's probably not going to start. Now he moves on. And, I know he committed last week. I believe it was Tulsa. Tulane. Sorry about that. Yeah. Good for him. He's going to be good for that program. But we essentially upgraded at that position. And that's the only major piece that we technically lost. Everything else is going to benefit us. Bryce George is going to be a starter, I believe. I believe Bryce Hawthorne has a chance to really be an impact. Shaheed Barrows is probably going to be a starter now with John Nestor gone.
Jonah Pace, I thought, did some good things at the open practice. Pretty sure he was he had the PBU. It wasn't Hawthorne, it was Jonah Pace. So a couple of guys that look like they can help you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We'll get into Max White too. I know we lost him as well. That's a semi-big piece that we lost, but again, we got better. I don't know what their criteria is, but I believe everyone that at least covers the Hawkeyes and really focuses on Iowa and Iowa itself knows that we did what we had to do, and we got better. Our team is looking better overall in terms of portal. Now, we did lose a lot of talent to the league. But in terms of replacing that, we did the best we could, and for that, it's not a decline.
And I think there's excitement about what Sam Phillips at wide receiver can bring for Iowa. I don't think this season, maybe down the road, but Iowa did just add Ty Hudkins, who was at Purdue, comes over now to Iowa. I think Shaheed Barrows, the corner, has a chance to get into that cornerback mix for the Hawkeyes. I think Hudkins, you're looking a little bit further down the line, but he's young. He's got, he's got all 4 years of eligibility left. So that's somebody that can develop in the program. And if Phil Parker looks at a young man and says, yes, we want him in the program, we're going to take a chance on developing him, then look, Phil Parker has earned the right to bring somebody aboard and for everybody to give that stamp of approval to it. The quarterbacks, I mean, look at what Iowa's done in the quarterbacks room. You got Gronowski. You went and added Hank Brown from Auburn. Jimmy Sullivan comes over from Wake Forest. Or Jimmy Sullivan, you signed, Jeremy Heklinski, you brought over from Wake Forest through the Ruggiero connection there. And Jackson Stratton, I told you last week, I really think he's got a chance to be Iowa's backup quarterback based on what we saw in the open spring practice. And if he's your third string, there's not a lot of third string guys in college football, I don't think, that are better than Jackson Stratton. So kind of amazing what Iowa lost in its quarterback room, and the way that Tim Lester and company have replenished it, I think says a lot about Tim Lester.
No, yeah, of course. I mean, you look at the improvement he did from, you know, in his what he did last year, how the offense jumped significantly from 2 years ago to last year, and it wasn't nearly as good as some of the best programs, but it was still a big jump. Now, part of the reason is because our run game was so dominant, but if we could be that good of an offense without the passing game, now imagine with Mark Gronowski. Now, when you see Jackson Stratton improving, you got Hank Brown, who's also he's going to be a good quarterback as well. Now you got those three, not to mention Jimmy Sullivan and Jeremy Heklinski. Now our quarterback room is complete. Now we got some certified passers in there, some certified dart throwers that are going to throw to Sam Phillips, the guy brought in, a Reese Vanderzee, Addison Ostrenga, a Zach Ortworth, a Jacob Gill. Now our passing is going to get going. Then you still feel confident about our run game because our O-line is good. Now when you bring in Bryce George and how big he is, he's going to contribute. We got to feel good about what the offense is going to do. I'm assuming that we're going to be better this upcoming year than last year, even though we lost Caleb Johnson and some others. But in terms of the quarterback room, what a rebuild that is. What a upgrade that is. And Jackson Stratton, he's the only guy that's coming back. You got to figure that he's going to be, if Mark Gronowski goes down for some reason, you got to feel confident that he's going to come in because he knows the playbook and he knows the guys already. He's going to impact the game for sure.
Kirk Ferentz, by the way, he was asked in closing the spring, how do you feel you did via the transfer portal? And while we're talking quarterbacks, he made a point to really thank Brendan Sullivan, which I thought was pretty cool. He talked about how the guys that left, what you don't want is guys sticking around that really aren't sure if they want to be there. And that's just not good for anybody. And then, he made a point to thank Brendan Sullivan. He said he's as good as anybody they've had at Iowa coming in, just in terms of the kind of person he is, the work ethic, his competitiveness. So Kirk made it very clear, Chris, that he and the program are rooting for Brendan Sullivan at Tulane and very thankful and understanding of the situation for Brendan Sullivan, right? I think you and I sat here, and probably anybody that's got an Iowa platform went back and forth about, well, it makes sense for Brendan Sullivan that he's at that point in his career where he's got a season of eligibility left and he wants to go somewhere where he can play.
Of course, and that's exactly what I expect him to do. He's earned the right to get playing time. And as we said in the past episodes, when you bring in a guy like Mark Gronowski, you're not bringing him off the bench. He's gonna start. And as I said earlier in this show, Kirk Ferentz is the guy to tell him straight up, hey, this is what your role is going to be. If you want to leave, we understand. And Brendan Sullivan, if you're a true Hawkeye fan, nobody should be mad about him leaving. You should feel happy that he's going to go somewhere and get the opportunity to showcase his talent, because he's a talented guy and he could play football at a high level. So it'll be good to, watch him, at Tulane do his thing, and, we'll support him from far, but we got to feel happy with, the quarterback that we're getting for sure. Because next year, we could be a 2026 draft guy. You don't know.
Kirk Ferentz on the quarterbacks was pleased with what they've got in the vertical passing game. The open practice, Iowa hit on some throws 15, 20 plus yards down the field. I repeat, wait for it. Iowa connected on throws down the football field. Oh, baby. It was glorious to watch Iowa throw the football successfully down the football field in the open spring practice. And Kirk Ferentz said on the vertical passing game that it was probably more on that day than they've seen all spring, which I thought was an interesting quote. Is Kirk trying to pull the fast one here on opponents, or is he being honest by saying that was more vertical passing game than Iowa's seen all spring? Most would jump in and say, Chris, he's being honest based on the last however many years, but I don't know. I'm hopeful that he's trying to, keep a couple of pocket aces.
Definitely the second thing. He's definitely got some aces in his pocket still, I've seen that Iowa's leaning towards a run first offense again. And, it's you got to feel confident about the passing game. I'm sure like we showed a lot of good things in the spring practice, but um, I believe that's going to be misleading to other coaches. And but here's the thing though. Here's the thing is that you can't just expect Iowa to run the ball the entire time again. And when you stop the run, just not to throw the ball or to be at the 1 yard line and punt it again. Because now, again, we have some quarterbacks that can consistently throw it down the field. Now it's going to be a little different where, okay, they might be running first. They're going to run a lot, but still got to have our DBs ready because they're good. They're probably going to launch one. We got some big receivers, like I said, some Stringer, Reese Vanderzee, Zach Ortworth, some guys over 6 foot that can really make plays downfield. We're a lethal all around offensive team that's not just a run offense no more. In terms of next year, it's both. And Tim Lester, now he has another year with Iowa under his belt. He's learning the new guys, but a lot of those offensive guys are coming back. Now he knows their skill sets, he knows their strengths, and this offense is really going to come together, and we're going to average more than 27 points a game because of the continuity that's there along with the talent we're bringing in. So whether it is supposed to be misleading or not, I think that teams, regardless, are still going to have to prepare for a different type of offense because we're going to throw it more and we're going to be more successful at throwing the ball, and that's going to make us better, and we're going to be better than 8-4.
Count me in the camp of Poker Kirk. I hope that he's playing a little poker here. He mentioned about, again, the passing game, the vertical passing game. He said, I think if we've grown more at one spot than at any other spot, it's the wide receivers group. He said just a little bit more veteran there. Guys have a better understanding of what they're being asked to do, which is something that we've touched on, Chris, that Reese Vanderzee, okay, healthy, big-bodied guy, somebody we saw go do some positive things in his first year on campus. Excited about what Reese Vanderzee can bring to the table. Fired up that you went and got Sam Phillips out of the transfer portal. Jacob Gill, another player that has done good things at Iowa a season ago. And the list goes on, right? Dayton Howard did some impressive things throughout the open spring practice. And I'll miss a couple of names, I'm sure, from the wide receivers. Who else am I missing from the wide receiver? Seth Anderson. I can't believe I didn't mention him. Caden Weegan. So the wide receiver group is a group that Kirk Ferentz was quick to say that's one that's made a jump for us.
Yeah, stacked. This is a stacked receiving core. You can only play 3 at a time, and we have 6 guys that could really produce. Now that's a great problem to have. We're gonna have to. I'm sure he's gonna figure it out and see which way he wants to go in terms of who's gonna play the most. Excuse me, but we gotta feel confident what we have. We got Reese Vanderzee. We got some of those young guys. Good for Ken Weegan for getting that scholarship. That's got to tell you a little something about how much time he's going to get on offense. Not just, obviously, he's still going to return punts, but what he's going to do as a receiver. I have a hunch in my stomach that he's going to be a primary guy for us, but we'll see when it comes to fall. You don't bring in Sam Phillips to set him on the bench again. He's expecting to play. Maybe the Dayton Howards, maybe they have to wait another year. Seth Anderson, you got to imagine that he'll play, especially last year when he came back from injury. He was immediately a wide receiver 3. So you'll have to imagine that he's going to get some time. It's going to be a really split-up group. I don't see besides Reese Vanderzee, like again, I said, I'm very high on him this year. I don't see anybody that's really going to be really ahead over the others. I think Reese Vanderzee will still be the one, but it'll be a very bunched group because it's going to be so much even playing time. And that's so good for the offense. That's very telling about our passing offense, about all the weapons we have. Whether it's deep ball, little 5-yard slant, you got it all. We could do it all. We have so many targets that could produce. And again, with Mark Gronowski, you could throw the ball deep. It's going to be a different offense. It's going to be more exciting. If you loved Hawkeye football the past 3 years, and believe me, sometimes with the offense, it's very hard to love. If you loved it the past 3 years, you're going to love it next year.
The best things in life come to those that wait. By the way, I've done a poor job of this. I am Josh Helmer with Hawkeyes Wire of USA Today Sports. Check out my work, the team's work, hawkeyeswire.usatoday.com. Chris Meglio, you can check him out in the Daily Iowan and soon the Des Moines Register, a summer near you. And of course, we're here with you every Monday night at 6 o'clock, Iowa Hawkeyes Primetime Live, and probably before short order on Thursday nights coming your way too, where we'll take calls and do some fun stuff. Jump into the chat, guys. Let us know who you are, where you're watching from, and even if it's just hey, I'm Seth. Hi, I'm so-and-so. Say hello and let us know. We see you out there. Appreciate you guys hanging out with us on a Monday night and look forward to hanging out with you every Monday night right here on Iowa Hawkeyes Primetime Live. But we've got about 20 more minutes with you. Any questions that you guys have, by the way, fire those along into the chat as well. Really want this show to be yours as well, not just we come in here and chop it up for an hour. I want you guys to get and feel involved as well. So for sure, jump into the chat and say hello and share your comments. Here's an update on players that were sidelined during the Iowa Open spring practice. This could be initially, Chris, an alarming collection of names right there when you look up, and we saw Mark Gronowski out there throwing the football a little bit for Iowa beforehand, just soft tossing it, but obviously not out there like Jackson Stratton, Hank Brown, and Jimmy Sullivan taking live 11-on-11 reps throughout the scrimmage portion for Iowa. So that is still around the bend coming up this summer for him. Bo Stevens, Logan Jones starting offensive lineman for you. Jacob Gill could very well be a starting wide receiver for Iowa. And then we know Herkett, Pittman, those are big-time. Brian Allen, those are big-time defensive linemen for the Hawkeyes. Xavier Wampa, hearing really good things about what's going on with him this spring outside of, obviously, him being sidelined during the open spring practice. I would just say that over my 3+ years now covering Hawkeye football, which I'm sure for many of you is much longer than that, watching and living and breathing Hawkeye football. But I don't get carried away with injuries during the spring. I think Iowa has proven to be very cautious and mindful, as probably many programs are, but very cautious and mindful of the way that they approach the spring with pushing guys or getting veteran players in particular work. So I look at this list and I take what Kirk Ferentz said at face value. He did mention about Jennings Dunker, which Jennings Dunker is not on this list. I should have put his name up there too. Jennings Dunker, your starting right tackle, has been dealing with an orthopedic issue. Kirk Ferentz says it's nothing major. They addressed it during the open practice week, and that nothing injury-wise, Chris, is going to cost anybody time in August. So that's good news.
Yeah, I think it's just more precautionary than anything. We talked about it before. It's just a good time to see what everyone else can do. It's a good time to see, that's a lot of starters that are out right now. So who's going to be the two? Who's going to be the guy? If one of these guys actually does go down, who are we going to put in first? Who do we trust putting in first? Who's putting in the most work? Who's showing the most progress? I think that's the benefit of, having these guys kind of take a rest and take a back seat for now. Football is a big injury game. Injuries are going to happen. It happens every year to a lot of players. It's a very physical game. You get beat up every game. So you need to feel confident about your backups and who's going to step in. Now, it is subject to change throughout the course of a 12-game season, plus playoffs for those who are blessed enough to make the playoffs. But, you got to let's not be discouraged. Because even if it is, a slightly decent injury, still got a long way to go before the season. The season starts in late August. It is early May. That's about a 4-month window to get recovered for 4.5 months. So, not too discouraged. I'm just more excited to see who are going to be the twos in the depth chart. So that's pretty much what I'm getting out of it. Is it's time to see who's gonna step up when needed.
I'm pretty sure it was our own Corey Bratta from Iowa Hawkeyes Live, and you guys know Corey from the Hawkeye of the Storm, famous in Hawkeye circles. I'm pretty sure he's the one that asked the question about Bryce George specifically out of the transfer portal and how he's fitting in and why and how Kirk Ferentz and the Hawkeye football staff could feel comfortable evaluating bringing him in from Ferris State to Iowa and why he could fit in and slot in effectively for the Hawkeyes. And basically, Kirk, in summation, said he's a veteran guy that has, yes, played college football not at the Big Ten level, but they like the fact that physically he's matured and ready to go from that standpoint, and that sometimes you don't have to have played at the Big Ten level to come in when you're a veteran guy, which I think you look kind of across the board at not just the transfer portal additions this year, Chris, but over the last couple of years. You know, Sam Phillips is somebody that's played football elsewhere at Chattanooga. You look at Shaheed Barrows, obviously has played football at South Dakota and been an impact guy elsewhere. Bryce Hawthorne, you know, similar thing there. Jonah Pace. So Iowa has an MO, I think, for guys that it's looking at out of the transfer portal. And if you were concerned about the jump from Ferris State, where, oh, by the way, he was an All-American and rock star for a national champion, Bryce George, they're not concerned about that with him. And Iowa feels like because he's physically at that point, he's ready to just slot right in. And the other interesting thing he said, Chris, in closing on Bryce George here was that it didn't sound like he was just chalking it up that he's in the left tackle competition. He said, let me see if I can get into my notes here, that well, basically he said they've got a couple of offensive line spots that are jump ball positions for Iowa, which is to say that left tackle, right guard, I think Bryce George could be a factor at either.
Yeah, you know, as you said, he's in the competition for left tackle. You know, I'll take it a step further and say it's almost guaranteed that he's going to play. It's guaranteed that we're going to see him on the line when the season comes. That's what I'm getting out of it. If he's really competing for that left tackle spot, you know, I'm saying a lot about what they see in him, what they believe in him, and they just want to, either way, it just sounds like they want to have him in the lineup, you know, and all those guys, you got to feel, you know, confident about what they're going to bring, even though I think it's harder to evaluate defensive players. Obviously, when it's a quarterback, Mark Gronowski, you're going to see highlight tapes, you're going to see stats. With defensive players, I feel like a lot of those guys, that's what doesn't show up on the stat sheet. So it's harder to evaluate those in terms of additions. But, you know, 26 years, he's been in the game a long time. He knows what to look for, you know, and I think that, you know, we're in a good spot. But as, you know, T. Hicks said, you know, are we going to add any other players? You know, I've said it in the past show, you know, you can never be content. Even the guys who win the championship, the Ohio States, they're not sitting back and, you know, thinking, oh, okay, our roster's okay right now. You're going to keep looking for additions. You're going to keep looking to get better. And, you know, we got Mark Gronowski, but they still went out. Iowa went out and got Jeremy Hiklinski, even though he's probably not – we might not see him this season. Still an addition. There's still always more to look for. So we can feel confident about what we have. And trust me, I feel confident. I believe Hawkeye Nation does too. But in terms of, you know, are we going to sit back and, you know, lay off on the portal? I don't think that's going to happen. We're going to keep looking for more because there might be a hidden gem in there still.
If there's somebody that can definitely help you at a position of need, I'm trying to think if the right option presented itself beyond Hudkins at safety, then, you know, maybe you'd look there. I think always the trenches, either side of the football, offensive line, defensive line. I don't know that there's as big of a need anymore, but maybe another offensive lineman if the right fit emerged, just because, as Kirk Ferentz said in his final spring remarks, they got a couple of jump balls, Chris, on that offensive line. I think we know he's talking about left tackle, right guard, where they're replacing starters. Having said that, T. Hink, I'm not expecting another Iowa transfer portal addition. I think the attention turns to the 2026 class now, and we'll be following a lot of that as now we're into that portion on the schedule where the recruiting calendar from a high school standpoint really starts heating up in the way of trying to lock down commitments. And you've got your final, you know, you have the big Iowa official visitors weekend coming up here in short order in the summer months. So I think you kind of turn your attention there probably for the Hawkeyes that most of the, if not all, of the transfer portal shuffling is done, unless just that perfect opportunity presents itself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't want to expect anymore, but I think you make a good point. We're kind of at a place where we don't need to add anymore. I kind of don't even want to say that. I think that if we don't add anybody else, we'll be fine. I definitely think that we've added everything we need to add, and unless we have another prominent player that leaves for one reason or another, we might be content, and we might be a team that just kind of, like you said, focuses on the season ahead. It's good that you said it in the past show that Tim Lester, would be one to go out and go out on visits and recruit. But he's staying this offseason, focusing on next year. I think they understand that we have such a talented group, regardless of what we're losing in the draft and all that. And we have a lot of groundwork to do in terms of if we want to be back to that position we were last year, or even take it a step further. When there's 12 teams instead of 4, and I know that I saw some are pushing to 16. Don't know if that's happening this year, but that seems realistic. But now when you got more slots, it makes it more realistic that Iowa could somehow sneak in the spot. All we got to do is win a game or two more, and we could possibly be in the playoffs. And we have a team to do it. So, I think it's just the focus, like you said, is on next season. But if they do add anybody else, I wouldn't be surprised. Maybe someone will come out of nowhere.
T. Hink, this is an Iowa Hawkeye show. We actually, not by design, but just sort of organically led tonight with Caitlin Clark returning to Carver and the Fever coming in and playing the Brazil national team. We had that on the docket, but it was not the lead ticket, but it just kind of organically happened that way. So that's a long, winding way to say, no, we can get into whatever you guys want to get into. We're probably most shows going to lead and talk a lot of Iowa football. So you can expect that, you can anticipate that, but look, we're here to talk everything Iowa Hawkeyes. So basketball, absolutely. We're still monitoring if Giffa will be a transfer to Iowa. I know there's been some other names, bandied about out there for the Hawkeyes. And hopefully we get more good news on the Iowa transfer portal front. You look at which speaking of Iowa basketball, we got the contract details for Ben McCollum, and we're kind of getting skinny on time. So we should just, I think, earmark that for next week to really go into full detail on what his contract situation. If you're dorky like me, then you enjoy the sports business side. I know that's not for every fan. I understand that not every Hawkeye fan is going to be taken with, hey, these are the contract details and here's the salary pool for the assistants and so on and so forth. But we will discuss some of that next week. But I love what the Hawkeyes have done out of the transfer portal so far. It's regarded by 247 and On3 and Rivals, kind of anywhere you look, that Ben McCollum and company with I think probably the two headliners, obviously Bennett Sturts and Alvaro Fulgaris, that you're right there at the top nationally in terms of what transfer portal classes in college basketball look like. And so I know that they've had to basically, Chris, kind of replace everything. So with that in mind, you'd hope if you're replacing everything that, yes, you would have one of the top transfer portal classes. But I really say bravo to Ben McCollum, to his staff, to Beth Getz for hiring McCollum and for clearly resourcing this staff to where they can go, Chris, do what they've done in the transfer portal. And oh, by the way, they're not done yet.
Yeah, you still got a couple more spots to fill, but in terms of what we got, man, you got to feel good. I mean, I feel confident about what the culture at Drake was last year and all the guys that are coming to bring that over to Iowa City now. And when you get a guy like Fulgaris, he was the player of the year at his conference, and you had a couple others in there like Cooper Koch. Bringing him back was huge, and I just feel very good about what the team is going to be. It seems really exciting. There's a lot to look forward to, and I believe that what the main thing was, I believe, was to fans in the stands. There wasn't a lot of that the past couple of years. Me covering men's basketball, I've seen it firsthand, so. I believe there's going to be more fans in the stands. It makes me more intrigued to go back and watch some games. I still believe I'll be in women's next year. I hope to, because I love women. I love the women's game, but the men's team, I got to go check them out a couple of times too. Just having a fresh face in there and a whole new team, not to mention the NBA caliber player, Bennett Sturts. Yeah, we're going to be competitive. It's going to be very exciting. It's the whole dynamic of what Iowa basketball has been the past, few years or so. It's going to be a completely different team, more athletic. So you got to feel really confident, man. I feel confident what Ben McCollum's going to be.
Yeah, I think, Brendan Hassan, who you brought in from Kansas State, has a chance to really stretch the floor for you. I know, let's see here. Seth chimed in and said, I think we're going to love Tavion Banks. He's like Seydou Traore at the 3-4 spot, but better. I hope that's right. I know that the staff's really excited about him. Sounds like they're pretty fired up about Cale Combs and what he could be too. Manyao, I think inside their hope is that maybe he can be a big-time rotation guy for him as well. So, look, I think they've done an awesome job just retooling this thing, restocking the cupboards in a big way quickly, and can't wait to see how they finalize those last couple of pieces on the roster. Just before we head out the door, Seth also says, Iowa, Heller ball, baby. Come on now. A 2.5 game lead on Oregon with the Big Ten outright. They obviously have that, massive series coming up against Oregon in a couple of weeks. They have the UIC game got canceled for Wednesday. So if you're looking forward to that game, it's not happening. It got ripped off the docket earlier today. But you've got the series against Oregon State and the series versus Oregon left. And, I don't know. I would like to see the tournament committee give the Big Ten a little bit more grace. And naturally, I think the RPI situations, Chris, are going to improve for the Big Ten going forward because you've got USC, because you've got Oregon, UCLA, Washington now. That will help to have those former Pac-12 schools coming over where it's geographically easier to recruit baseball players to those programs in those states as compared to obviously what Iowa has to deal with in the early, late winter, early spring months. That's obviously been a challenge for Iowa and for other Big Ten baseball programs, but I'd like to see the tournament selection committee at times give a little bit more geographic grace to the way they admit these teams into the NCAA tournament. To me, look, barring the collapse of all collapses here versus Oregon State, Oregon, and into the Big Ten tournament, if you're the Big Ten regular season champ, stop it. We shouldn't be talking about an at-large bid for the Iowa Hawkeyes. Reward that program with we shouldn't be talking about if they're on that at-large bubble. Reward them in concrete with an at-large bid to the NCAA tournament. Don't sit there and make it about, well, the RPI wasn't this, the RPI wasn't that. I hate that they punish some of these schools up north that don't get the same scheduling advantages that the SEC, the ACC, and other big-time programs get. I wish that they would take that into more consideration.
Yeah, and they have to, man. I mean, I understand that, school or conferences like the SEC are going to draw more baseball talent because they're in warmer weather. But, when we got UCLA, Oregon, USC, Washington now, and, looking at the conference, 2, 3, 4, and 5, those are some prominent schools on the warmer side coming here. Now, okay, you got to pay more attention to us because, I think that's just geographically, if you're going to be in terms of last year, if you're going to favor more Pac-12 schools for that kind of reason, now when you got Pac-12 schools in the Big Ten, eyes are on us now, in a sense. With that being said, when Iowa's up top, everybody, especially with the season we had last year we were supposed to be a top 25 team, and we just had a major disappointment and, kind of put a season to waste with Brody Brett there. And he was a talented guy. He went supposed to be mid-first last year, but ended up going early second, I believe, to the Rockies. Shout out to the Rockies for picking him. But
one of those guys that flames coming off the hand as he released that baseball. Man, that fastball is filthy.
Yeah, it's nasty. But, it's nice to see the program kind of rebuild itself within a short year, and sit up top the Big Ten. Now, let's see if we can finish strong because, I know UCLA is not super far behind us. So let's see if we could clinch that one spot. And if we do, there's no reason why we shouldn't be in the tournament. But I'll tell you, man, I went to a couple games this year. As a fan, I did not cover. And just to see the turnout there, the fans show up, for some beautiful baseball this time of year, man, it's amazing. So I love to see T. Hank and Seth Shepard in the comments talking about going to the game. Who knows? I might even go to that game Friday. If is it in Des Moines? I know you said you're going to the game versus Oregon State in Des Moines. If it's here, you guys are here. No, maybe we'll meet face to face. If you guys know what I look like. So if I'm there, please come up and let's say hi, because I would love to know what the fans look like.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, that's what we're all about. Big series coming up versus a big couple of series, Oregon State and Oregon, and pulling big time for Coach Heller and company to finish the year strong. It's been such a great season. Finish it on the right note and punch that NCAA tournament regional ticket. We've overstayed our quota, which now I guess is becoming a theme on this show in successive weeks here. But that's okay. It just means we get a little more time to hang out with all of you. Put this on your bingo card for next week, and we can jump into this in full. Well, I guess it helps if I show you his top 25 maybe first. Joel Klatt released his post-spring top 25 today, and lo and behold, the Hawkeyes, number 23, according to Joel Klatt, who you can see there he loves the Big Ten. He's got Penn State number 1. I don't know about that. I don't know about Texas at number 2. I need to I know it's Arch Madness, but I need to see a little bit more football from Arch Manning before I'm ready to anoint the Texas Longhorns, though I think that roster is really good, and I think Texas is good. Ohio State, though, Oregon, a couple other Big Ten teams in Joel Klatt's top 5. Let's see. There's just a lot of folks that are high on Illinois with Luke Altmaier coming back. I know that Coach Bielema had a great season a year ago, but that's too high for me. I can't get there yet with Illinois. I'd love to see it. I root for programs like Illinois to surprise and to be successful. And obviously the Bielema connection back to Iowa, pulling for him, in that regard, if it's not at the Hawkeyes expense. But again, that's maybe a little too high for me. Let's see, Michigan right there at 12. And Iowa State, of course, of note to Hawkeye fans. Indiana, some respect there at number 21. And then obviously the Hawkeyes at number 23. And here's a little bit of what Joel Klatt said about Iowa. Iowa's earned the benefit of the doubt. Iowa generally doesn't get great quarterback play. I think this year, Chris, they could. Why? Well, Mark Gronowski is transferring in from South Dakota State. Gronowski's been exceptional at the FCS level, and I think he could have a Curtis Rourke-like impact on Iowa, which is, I like that. That's quite the quote from Joel Klatt. You're authoring the page views for us at Hawkeyes Wire, Joel. We appreciate that.
Yeah, I have a couple takeaways from that list. Well, to see 7 Big Ten schools is good. Just get into it real quick because I know we're on time, but I kind of want to talk about it. It's on the top of my head. I'm with Seth and Tink. Illinois up on 10 is it's a very high number for a team that didn't make the playoffs. I will just put it out there. Respect to them, Big Ten folks, so not too much respect, but we'll see how that plays when the season comes. Notre Dame number 6, I feel like they should be higher considering they retained most of their talent, and especially getting Jeremiah Love back. That was huge for me. He definitely could have gone to the league and probably been first round. So to get him back was huge. And to see Arizona State at 15, I just don't know about that because Cam Scatterby was such a big, huge reason to why they were so successful. For them to go be projected last in the Pac-12 to first is a big reason. You got to think what their best player did last year. Now he's gone. So those are my just really quick takeaways. And the Hawkeyes, good to see him in the top 25 after losing all that talent in the draft. My quick points right there.
Klubnik, folks excited about maybe what Clemson can do this season as well. They sneak into the top 5, but we can delve into that in more detail next week. Anything that you guys want us to chat about, by all means, please like and subscribe. Like this video, subscribe to the channel. That's how we grow. It's how we get in front of more Hawkeye fans, and it's how, successfully speaking, for Chris and I, it's how we make this more financially worthwhile for the two of us, just being totally transparent with you on that front. So please please subscribe, and support the channel. We appreciate you guys hanging out with us. We'll be here every Monday night talking Hawkeye football, basketball, baseball, you name it, right here on Iowa Hawkeyes Primetime Live. Everybody have a great rest of your Monday nights and a great rest of Cinco de Mayo. I didn't even tell everybody happy Cinco de Mayo, but everybody happy Cinco de Mayo, and we'll catch you next time. Chris, have a great evening, my friend. So long, everybody.
You too as well. Thanks for everyone for tuning in. It's always a pleasure to do this for you guys.